So first things first, you will need a sewing machine. This is a really basic sewing machine. It just does simple stitches. It's a good one for beginners. So if you're sort of just starting out, it's a good model to choose. I've never actually really heard of the model. My grandmother bought this for me when I first moved out of home. I think it was only about $100. So if you're just looking to make like some alterations, some simple things, so the first thing you need to know when setting up a machine is actually how to turn it on. So it'll come with a cord. Usually it's joined. Sometimes it has a separate cord for the electricity and then for your foot pedal, but in this case it's joined. So just plug that in, make sure it's put into a power point and that your foot pedal is in a comfortable place. There will be a switch on the side somewhere. Just flick it on and you'll know it's on because usually there'll be a light. So you've just got your normal stitchings. This one's a pretty good one because it gives you a lot of options. So these are the ones that these are all the stitches that this machine does. And these are the dials that you use to change them. So it tells you a reference to what they all are and then what you need to change it on to the dial. So so you'll see we'll say C, it's just a zigzag stitch. So then you just go down to this dial and it's already on C, so you just move that to C. This one here, it's an S1, it's just a different sewing option, so you just have to turn the dial to the S1. If you want to change it back, just turn it back around. The next thing you'll need to know is just how to thread your machine. So this is what it is at the top here. You can use whatever, usually just cotton is what you use. Every sewing machine nearly comes with an instructions on sort of which way they need to go. So you can just see the arrows. So if you just follow those arrows along, you'll be able to, it's pretty simple. If you're not sure, if you've got a new sewing machine, it most likely comes with instructions. So. Okay, so I've just gone along and threaded my machine. Some come with their own sort of threader. You just pull down here and it sticks through the thing and pulls your thread through. But this one doesn't, so you have to do it the old-fashioned way. You can either get one of those, like a needle threader. I'm not sure the technical term, but yeah. They're a little bit easier, but I just sort of cut the end, make sure it's nice and sort of tapered and then stick it through the needle. Okay, the other important thing about sewing is how to thread your bobbin. So usually all machines are different. My bobbin in this machine is in here. You just need to lift up a little lever and pull it out. And there's your bobbin in there. Most of them come with instructions how to thread it, which direction they need to go in, but it's pretty simple. You can sort of figure it out yourself. So I'm just going to go stick that back in. I'll be back in a second. Okay, so all machines are a little bit different in how you have to stick your bobbin in. This one in particular, you have to keep this little knob here upright. So if you just want to put it there and open it up and click it in, you'll hear a bit of a click, and then all you do is shut the door. Your machine will then pick up the thread when it goes, so don't worry about it trying to get it up into the foot. Another thing you will really need to know is how to put cotton on your bobbin. If you just go to the top of the machine, most of them are at the top. Some of them do sit on the front, but in this case it'll always nearly have a picture or some sort of reference to what it is. You'll need to get an empty bobbin, or it doesn't have to be empty, just as long as there's enough room to put cotton on top of it. Then choose whatever colour cotton you like. In this case it's just like a sort of off-white. You'll have to unthread your bobbin, unthread your machine to do this. So, okay, so what I've done here, I've just got my empty bobbin and I've just got the end of the thread and just spun it around a couple of times just to make sure it's quite sort of stable. Then you'll just see that there's a little knob here that it goes on. If you just put it on top, and you would have to, just to get it to kick into the, so the machine knows that you're threading the bobbin, you just have to push it to the side. All machines will be a little bit different, but you'll soon be able to work it out. So if you just follow the string along, most machines will just have a sort of like a little knob that the cotton has to go around just to sort of pull it tight. You just put it there, and I usually just, to get it started, just pull it out with my hands, and there you go. So I'm just pushing on the foot pedal, as fast as slow as you're comfortable with, and you'll just see that it's spinning the bobbin really fast and the thread's going on top. Okay, so once you've got enough cotton onto your bobbin, just clip it, take it off, and I've already cut it, so and then cut the end, and there is your threaded bobbin. Now all you have to do is just put it into your machine like I showed you earlier, and then rethread your machine. You're ready to go. Now we're getting ready to sew. If it's your first time sewing, it's probably a good idea to have a bit of a practice run on a scrap bit of material. You can just sort of test out how fast is comfortable for you, what stitches you want to do, just getting comfortable with your machine really, and just knowing how to use it properly. So the first thing I would do, I've just got a bit of scrap material, I've just got my foot on there, and you'll just have to before you begin sewing, make sure your foot is down. So there'll just be a lever on the back of the machine, and just put it down. A little bit gently about that. Okay, and next thing to remember, just make sure your threads are out the back. Otherwise it'll get stuck up when you're stitching. It just looks a little bit messy. So if you just make sure that they're all behind, then you can start going. So first thing, you'll just have to choose a stitch. So I'm just going to choose just the basic one, which is A. Okay, so I've just got it turned around there. Okay, so when you start sewing, you'll notice that there's a couple of lines just on the side of your foot there. They're actually measurement indicators. Most machines will have sort of, if it's 1/4 or 1/2 or 1/8, I think it's of an inch. I'm in Australia here, so I don't go by those sort of measurements. I just sort of pick one and keep on one. So if you sort of wanted to do a hem or something like that, you use those lines as a guide, so you're sewing the exact same amount from the edge all the way around your garment. So they're really good, easy to use, or you can use like the side of your foot. Sometimes they've got some lines on there. In this case it's just a simple machine, so they don't have anything like that. Okay, so just to begin sewing, you just put your pedal down and you'll just go along easily like that. There you go. So see, my thread just got caught up a little bit in that, but that's okay. Okay, so you also notice that there's a lever up here. It'll be somewhere on your machine, whether it's just a button or something like that. That's a back and forth, so you can do a back and forth stitch just to reinforce your stitch so it doesn't come undone when you're finished. So if you put it down, you'll notice that the backwards. Flick it up, it'll go forwards. So when you finish sewing, like if you're, for instance, doing a hem, you would go back and then you'd go forward again, and that will just reinforce the end of your stitch, so you're not, I suppose it won't come unravelled once you've done it all and it's all looking beautiful, and then all of a sudden it unravels on you. So just remember to do that at the beginning and at the end of your stitch. So another thing you'll need to know when you're finished to stitch, once you've done your back and then your forward again, is how to release the needle. So first thing you've got to check, some machines are better than others, this one's really simple and it can be a little bit difficult, is to make sure that your needle isn't still stuck in the fabric when you go to pull it out. I've noticed this machine does it, whereas I've got another machine and it's nowhere near as bad. So if you just come to the end of your machine there, if it is in your material, all you have to do is turn that, and you'll notice that it pulls your needle up and down. So if it is in the fabric, just give that a turn. You'll figure out which way you need to turn it, and just lift it up, just so you don't, when you pull it out, you don't yank your needle out with it and break it. So the next thing you'll need to do is just lift up your foot. So just go to the lever that I showed you earlier and just lift it up. Then you can just pull your material out. Most machines have a cutter on the side, so just pull it and just cut it off. If you sort of want to make it a little bit neater, use some pair of scissors. You get the little ones or the big ones. So I've got both sets here. I just prefer the big ones because they're sharper, and these little ones only seem to have one section on the whole blade that actually cuts, so I find that a little bit annoying. Okay, so now you know how to put your foot down and sew. You can go along and just try a couple of stitches, so just go along and change your the knob to whatever you want to put it as. And just go along and just test out all of the stitches on your machine, because sometimes stitching can just make a garment a whole lot different. So if you're aware of what your machine can do, you can usually be really creative. So just go along and do that on a scrap piece of material. You can also use that piece of material as a reference, so just put it nearby, and you can, if you're sort of looking for a stitch to do on a hem or just around a neckline or something like that, you can just go like, oh, that's a nice stitch, I'm going to use that one. So just keep it nearby, and it can come in really handy. So I'm just moving on to a bit of equipment, just basic stuff that you'll need just to get started. I've just got a pair of scissors. It is so helpful to get a pair of good scissors, otherwise you end up hacking your material to death and it just looks terrible, and you find it's really hard to line up when you've got hacks and all that sort of stuff in it. So a good pair of scissors is really essential, I find. And if you're going to spend a bit of money on anything, spend it on your scissors. The rest of the stuff is really inexpensive, so you just need some pins. Some people prefer not to use pins, but some things I do, some things I don't, so just use your personal preference. Some people like to use notches and that sort of thing, but I just find as a beginner, go with your pins. So they come in usually just a little packet. They're really inexpensive, or you can just do what I do and just make a bit of a pin cushion. Another thing, if you're a beginner, you'll most likely need a quick unpick. They are the best things since sliced bread, because you'll probably make a lot of mistakes, but that's alright. They're the best things. Another thing you'll need is cotton. Now you don't need as many as these. Usually a white or a black is really all you need. Once you get comfortable, you can sort of mix it up a bit more, but I just find just if you've got a roll of white and a roll of black, you can use that with most colours. I've got extra bobbins there, but that's not really essential. You can get one or two. Usually one or two come with your machine anyway, so I usually just put a black and a white, and then I've just bought a packet of these actually. I saw them really cheap, so I grabbed them. So they're just full of all different colours and that sort of thing. So if you want to sort of go with something like that, easy. Another thing that you might find really helpful when you're doing it is a pair of pinking shears. They're a really simple way to finish off edging and that sort of thing. So all they are is just an old pair of scissors, but they're just sort of like a crinkle cut sort of thing. And what they do, because it is jagged, they cut the material a little edge, like on a diagonal, and it stops it from fraying. So you might find that they're really helpful, and again, make sure they're a good pair, make sure they're really sharp. But if you don't have a pair of those, it's really not the end of the world. Another thing you'll need is just whatever material you want to use. So depending on what you're making, you'll have to get different lengths, but I'll go through some of that when I start making some garments. So you might find that just a bit helpful. So there you have it. There's just a few simple things that you can use when sort of consider when starting sewing. Nothing has to be expensive unless you want to keep sort of a machine for 20 years, pass it down from generation to generation, which is really what me, my mum and my grandma have done. But you know, if you just want to do a few simple things, cheap machine, really inexpensive equipment, and you can get going pretty easily. So thanks for watching. See you next time.